Welcome to U.S. Visa Questions Answered Here.
Hello and welcome to Talking U.S. Visas with immigration attorney Frances Hayden. For the past 20 years, Frances has focused on consular processing of non-immigrant visas at U.S. embassies and consulates worldwide, with a special emphasis on third country national visa processing. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and in our first episode today, we're going to talk about navigating the consular maze, the secret to successful consular processing. Frances, so nice to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kevin. And I have to make one correction right off the bat. I'm approaching 40 years of law practice, not 20.
My goodness.
Thank you. I'm not quite there yet, and I would say 35 of those years have been immigration.
Wow. Well, hey, then we're even more so to trust you as an expert.
That's
sure.
Right. I've been around.
You've done it for a bit. Yeah.
You did it all.
Well, that's a great segue. Can you tell us a bit about your background and how you came to specialize in consular processing and immigration law?
Yes. Well, starting with immigration law, when I became an attorney, I first started working at an entertainment labor law firm. Labor law is somewhat related to immigration, and I didn't like that experience at all. And I happened to be a Spanish speaker because I studied in Mexico when I was in university. And that year, the laws changed, and there was a law that came in that most people know as amnesty, which allowed people who had been illegal in the United States for as long as you want to go in and basically have a confessional and get admitted and become a permanent resident. It was quite an amazing time. And so I made the jump into an immigration law firm. And I did various different things for the first couple of years. And then a good friend of mine introduced me to consular processing. And boy, was it different back then. I'm talking about the mid 80s. I just took it from there and I never stopped.
What do you find the most rewarding about working in consular processing and helping clients reunite with their families or pursue other immigration goals?
This practice brings a tremendous amount of satisfaction. I think all immigration lawyers feel that way. But with consular processing, it's even more because people are putting their lives on the line when they go to a consulate, particularly those who are already in the United States and need to travel outside to get the visa stamped in their passport. Because it's basically, I would describe it as the freedom to travel. You might be in the United States in a perfectly legal status, but you can't take a trip and come back until you go visit a U.S. consulate or embassy to get that visa stamped in your passport. And some people call that stamping. So it's like a high wire act for the attorney to try to ensure success in that process, because many times if you don't have success, the person might be stuck outside the United States until you can get that decision changed or find some solution to the problem. So people are very, very nervous. So you have to be part psychologist, you have to be Zen, you have to keep people calm. And when it's successful, they are the most grateful people on earth and very, very loyal. And I still have clients who are now citizens who are sending me cases because they'll never forget you if you solve their consular problem. Another thing I wanted to say is in the old days, I used to be able to travel with the client and go inside the consulate with them and actually advocate for them at the interview window. And that gradually changed over the years. It's another story, perhaps for another discussion. But now almost everything is done. Communications with consulates and embassies is done virtually through various different portals and so forth. And if people ask me if I can go inside, I have to say, I'm so sorry. Most places will not let me inside anymore, or anyone. And it came about mostly because of security concerns about letting people in after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. So everything began to become more restricted after that, understandably.
Yeah. I figured, without even saying that, I figured that was probably what the reason was, or at least something similar to 9/11. What's unique about working in consular law as opposed to maybe other immigration attorneys who might specialize in family-based or employment-based visas?
I do a little bit of those things too, and they're very related. But the difference with consular law is you're dealing with the U.S. Department of State. And it's a different agency altogether. And one of the biggest things about it is there's no appeal from a consular decision. There are ways you can, let's have a moment for that. No
Yeah,
appeal.
that's interesting.
If you're in the US and you have a decision denied, there are routes you can take to appeal decisions. But consular is, first of all, there's a tremendous amount of discretion that consular officers have to make a decision. There's no process to appeal. This has been litigated many, many times in the United States. Many advocates have tried to get this changed and have there be what we call reviewability. But there is no reviewability, and hence people are very, very nervous. Denials are sometimes reviewed by management, but rarely overturned. You can sometimes get things overturned through various routes. There's a portal that's for attorneys, but you can only use that if it's a question of law. So the consular officer has to make an error of law, not a determination on the facts. So it's not like being in a courtroom where people present opposing views and fight it out and there is evidence. It's not like that. You present your case to the consular officer, they make a decision, you're stuck with it. And that's why it's a high wire act. And now more attorneys are interested in it. But when I started, there were very, very few attorneys who dealt a lot with consular processing because it's a tough practice in many ways.
What are the, speaking of being a tough practice, what are the most common challenges that clients face when going through the consular process?
Well, sometimes these days it's getting an appointment. That became really critical during COVID because things were pretty much shut down and we had to use a lot of creativity. And there are still massive backlogs from that time period. But one good thing that came out of that period is that because there were so many backlogs, the State Department made a declaration and sent out a message to all the U.S. consulates and embassies around the world that they should accept people who are not from that consular district, meaning that country. So meaning that consulates have always had the discretion to pick who they will see at their consular post. Their mission is the place where they are situated. So say in Paris, they're there for all French citizens and residents of France. You are always able to open up if you wanted to, if you're a consular manager, but many did not. Then the State Department, because of the backlogs, came out with this decision that you should really open up about that and not take it as a negative inference that someone from China might be applying in Paris. So that is good because it gave people more flexibility as to where they could go apply. I would say that anxiety is huge among applicants. Knowing where they should apply, that's part of my job, is helping people decide where they're eligible to apply, where strategically it's good for them to apply, and then to show them through the process of both making the appointment and filling out the very all-important online visa application, which is called the DS-160, which should be a subject of an entire discussion that we have in the future about that form and how to answer it, because it is extremely detailed and it asks you a lot about your background and many tiny questions that many people are on the fence about how to answer.
I got to believe that doing what you do is difficult in a lot of ways, but one of the aspects that's difficult is constantly changing, leadership in different countries where they change, laws, where they change, where there's different outlooks on different parties, political parties and whatnot. And obviously we have a new president coming in, or president coming in here in a few days in the United States. Like how difficult do these changes of outlook and policy affect your ability to help people?
Wow. Well, you hit the nail on the head on that one, because the process is very political, but it also can be difficult to manage the day-to-day changes with immigration, because not only do you have the big changes, like now a new administration coming in, but you have small changes that happen constantly. And so immigration attorneys are in a constant process of self-education. Right now, though, as you mentioned, at this critical time, the level of uncertainty about what's going to happen next is so high. It reminds us all of COVID, because things kind of shut down during COVID in terms of the government processing, because people go in person to these interviews. And the incoming administration has us all feeling that the changes are going to be so dramatic and so sudden and so unknown at this time that we're going to be thrown in to a world of having to learn every single day what the changes are and how to properly advise our clients. On top of that, there's the issue of the fact that people are literally panicked now because of the uncertainty. And I try to gauge as best I can how the law might affect certain people. There's how the changes that we anticipate will affect people. There are people that it will clearly have an impact on, that I can predict for them that you need another strategy for yourself. For example, somebody who is under DACA, the people who came to the United States as children and illegally, and the program came in that allowed them to stay. Well, we anticipate that program's going to go away. And so the key is to look for solutions for them. But for the majority, I would say, of my clients, it's probably not going to affect them directly that much, because I'm not doing removal or deportation defense. I'm mostly dealing with people with extraordinary ability, people who are investors, people who are professional workers. In those categories, it's unlikely to affect most of them, but I have to underscore that the H-1B program, which you've probably heard about, has been in the news lately, and there's been a lot of controversy within the Republican Party about whether or not that's a positive thing for America or a negative thing for America. And so people are on edge about that. Incidentally, before the change in government, it is right before brand new regulations came out on the H-1B visa. And so we're already dealing with a whole set of things that had nothing to do with the new administration. There's a lot of subtle differences that came in that I won't go into here. We're going into this new administration with a set of new regulations for H-1B, and the H-1B season, as we speak of it, is coming up in February, March, where people have to enter a lottery to get into the H-1B program. And it's very, very small odds that you will be accepted. And so that process is about to come up. We don't know who will win the battle with the H-1B, because there are parts of the Republican Party that would like to eliminate it, people in Trump's inner circle that would like to eliminate it, and others like Elon Musk.
Like Elon, I was just going to say that.
Who use the program and who believe it's a positive program. Trump himself said he uses the program, but he's a little confused, because I don't believe he uses the H-1B, which is the professional visa. I believe he's been using a different H-1, which most people don't know about, which is an H-2B, which is for seasonal workers that work at resorts and things like that. That's what Trump uses. But it's also underneath the H umbrella. Yes, indeed. I mean, it's hard to even imagine where the borders are to how this is going to change. We're all kind of on red alert and trying to meditate and keep our clients calm.
Mindfulness, Zen.
Yes. Zen all the way.
Is it difficult to try? You sort of joked a little bit about how you're part psychologist, part therapist, part Zen.
Yes.
Is it difficult to keep people, people from being too panicked, to keep them, level-headed, let's stay the course, or let's do this, or let's do that, especially during times of uncertainty like now?
That's part of my job, yes. And it always has been. So I have developed some skills around that. It's interesting because nowadays the majority of immigration attorneys are women. And it's partly because women are naturally attracted to law, but many times because we are acculturated to be helping and to calm people down and to deal with others' emotions and stay calm. And
a lot of times better empathy, at least.
That's the word.
Yeah.
We are very empathetic, and immigration lawyers who are male also tend to be on the empathetic end of that spectrum, because
I would think you'd have to be.
You have to be. I do keep people calm. Sometimes when I'm preparing somebody to go to a visa interview, I have to say to them, stop looking at the internet, stop looking at all the possible worst case scenarios. Just focus on the positive and realize that you are now prepared. You can't prepare any more than you already have. So you need to just think positive and remain calm.
Yeah, and you're right about the internet. You're on social media and people talking about what's going to happen, and a lot of times they have no credible information to say what's going to happen. They're just guessing, but you don't know that by reading it. So yeah, I could see how people, especially if there's a language barrier too, getting a little freaked out by that.
Very much so. And that's one of the reasons I'm here and I'm talking to you, because I think it's very important to get good information out. In every area of life now, there's a lot of misinformation, and it's extremely important to have the right information. I would say that on the internet, the USCIS site, which is the immigration service within the United States that manages benefits and applications, it's a very good website. But that doesn't mean that you can read through it and be able to manage your own case necessarily. But that's fairly reliable. The State Department website is fairly reliable. And the Customs and Border Protection, who are the guys that inspect you when you come in and show your passport when you enter the US, their website is fairly reliable. But then there is a million things that are not reliable. And there's also a lot of chat rooms and people saying this and that. In fact, somebody just said to me today that he was at a Christmas party and this client had a visa refusal before and we're applying for another one for him in a different category. So that increases anxiety. I was at a Christmas party and the guy told me that he knows why, that there was a reason why they denied my visa. And we sort of already know what the reason is, but the guy at the Christmas party thought he knew more. And he said, it has to be that there was some kind of business complaint against your company in the United States. And in my almost 40 years of practice, I've never seen somebody refuse a visa because there was a business complaint about their business in the United States. So yeah, it's not just the internet. It's my cousin, this and that, my friend, and they tell me these things that sound very fanciful. And without knowing all the facts, I have no way to really comment about it except to say, don't listen to it. Don't listen to all the noise that there is out there.
Yeah. And like you said, the noise is plentiful. So, definitely for anyone listening, use reliable sources, trust the experts.
Yeah, it's true. I honestly believe that self-help in immigration is not a good idea. People think they can do it themselves. And I've seen many stories of things being really messed up. And it also, oddly, it doesn't help at all to just pick up the phone and call immigration and ask a question, because there's all levels of training within the agency. And you don't know that you're going to get somebody that knows what they're talking about. They might just be somebody who knows one narrow thing, which is their job. And I've seen people go off in the wrong direction with that kind of advice. I have also seen a lot of smart people out there, and a lot of my clients are very smart, and some have been able to do parts of their cases themselves. If they ask me to just walk them through their own self-help and not take full responsibility for the case, I can't do that, unfortunately, because it's unethical of me not to take on the full responsibility.
Right. Yeah.
So I can't help people through do it yourself.
Yeah. You can't just coach them along the way. You got to be more involved in that.
Yeah, it's not possible, but most people understand that. But there are many people who cannot pay, and there are many people who just want a little bit of advice. And I'm always happy to do that. I'm always happy to do a consultation and point people in the right direction and let them know what their options are. I often find there's a wide discrepancy among people who contact me about their level of knowledge about the system. Some people, many of my clients, know the system very, very well. Some have absolutely no knowledge of the system. So it's interesting to interact at those different levels. And I enjoy that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you can feel your passion for sure. Well, thanks for tuning in to Talking U.S. Visas with immigration attorney Frances Hayden. To connect with Frances and her team, visit haydenlaw.com, and please like and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a review in the comments. Frances, it's great to meet you. Great to have you here. Looking forward to more discussions.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.